Today I'm going to be talking about finding and using slopes of lines. So first off, let's review the types of slopes we can have. We can have positive, negative, zero, or undefined. And so we got to match each of these to those words. So for number one, it's going to be a negative slope. And the way we can tell that it's negative is that from left to right, if we look at it from left to right, it's going down. All right, this one is straight across, so it's zero. It's horizontal, so it's always zero. This one from left to right is going up, so it's positive. And this one is straight up and straight up and down is always undefined. Undefined. So we have to remember our different types of slopes. Okay. Now we have to remember our slope formula. Remember the letter we use for slope is m, and our slope formula is y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So we're going to be using that to find our slope. So let's look at our first question. It says find the slope of the line from the 2 points. What we always have to do is label our points first. So we have x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. And we're going to write our slope formula down. And after we write down our slope formula, we're going to plug in. Our y sub 2 is negative 1 minus, remember we always write minus, our y sub 2. Oh, so our y sub 1, which is a negative 2. Make sure we put that in parentheses. Then x sub 2 is 5 minus a negative 7. Okay? And when we have a negative and negative, it becomes a positive. So a negative 1 plus 2 is 1, and a 5 plus 7 is 12. So that is our slope, 1/12. Let's do another one. We label first, and then plug into the formula. 7 minus 4 over 2 minus 2. And this is going to be 3 over 0. Now, whenever we have a 0 in the bottom, in the denominator, that is going to be undefined. And that is an undefined slope. Let's look at a couple more problems for slope. Once again, we label our points. X sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Write our slope formula. And then plug in. So we have 6 minus 1 over 0 minus 2. And that gives us 5 over negative 2. So our slope is a negative 5/2. Let's do that again. Label, and then plug in. We have 4 minus 4 over negative 2 minus a negative 5. That negative becomes a positive. So this should be 0 over 3. Now when the 0 is on top, it simplifies to be a 0 slope. A 0 slope. So let's practice some graphing, okay, because we have to learn how to graph. So this one, it says graph the line through the given point with a given slope. So the first thing that we're going to graph is this point. So we're going to graph negative 1, 2. Okay, remember we do x, and then we do y. And then we're going to graph the slope. Now the slope is rise over run, and it helps if I put this into a fraction as 3 over 1. So from that point that I plotted, I'm going to rise 3 and run 1, and then I connect my points. And that is my line. Let's see that again. We have a point, which is 3, negative 1, and a slope of negative 2/3. So this is our x, this is our y. We always graph our x, then our y. Let's do our point first. So let's graph 3, negative 1. Maybe a little lower than that. And then from that point, we're going to graph our slope. So we're going to have our rise over our run. And it has a negative in the front, but that means only one of those numbers is going to be negative. So I always put it on the top. So it's a negative 2, 3. So I'm going to rise a negative 2, which means go down 2, and then run to the right 3. And then now we have our line. So we do definitely need to remember how to graph points and their slopes. All right, next up we have to know the difference between parallel and perpendicular slopes. So we have to tell whether they're parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Well, parallel slopes have the same slope. Perpendicular, let's write that over here, slopes have opposite reciprocals. An opposite reciprocal means change the sign. If it's positive, you change it to negative. And if we do the reciprocal, that means flip the fraction. So if we have something like a negative 2/3, the opposite reciprocal would be 3/2. Okay, so we're going to find the slope of each line, and then we're going to compare them. So for line 1, let's do that over here. Line 1 for number 1 is going to be 5 minus 4 over 10 minus 7, and that gives us a 1/3. Now for line 2, I have a 5 minus 3 over an 8 minus 2, and I get 2/6, which simplifies to be 1/3. Now, since these slopes are the same, line 1 and line 2 are going to be parallel. Let's do the second one. Line 1 is going to be 5 minus 1 over negative 2 minus a negative 3. So that'll be a plus. So 5 minus 1 is a 4, and negative 2 plus 3 is 1, 4/1. Okay, line 2 is going to be a negative 2 plus 3 over a 5 plus 1, and that is going to give us a 1/6. 6 4/1 and 1/6 has nothing in common. Those two lines are going to be neither. They're not parallel, they're not perpendicular. And our very last one, line 1, is going to be 7 minus 0 over 8 plus 6. So that's going to be 7/14, which simplifies to be 1/2. And line 2 is going to be 2 minus 4 over 2 minus 1. And that's going to be a negative 2/1. 1/2 and negative 2/1 are opposite reciprocals. So those two lines are going to be perpendicular.